How's it going? I am putting the valve train back together. If you've been following me on Instagram or TikTok, or you follow Kaiser Willys page, you've probably seen that for the month of May we're doing a motor series on this old engine. This is the one that you saw me get with that old Willys pickup truck, and so you saw all the water and nasty junk coming out of the oil pan. That's this engine, and I'm using all Kaiser Willys parts and trying to see if between May 1st and June 1st that I can make this old engine run. I mean, it was full of water, it was seized when I got it, and so they popped it apart and found out what was wrong with it, and it ended up being a 1943 chain drive block, which, if you know Willys, it's kind of cool if you're into the history of these things. So I don't really know much beyond that other than it's old, but it had standard bore pistons and relatively in good shape considering how awful of a condition it was in when I got it. So long story short, I'm working the red eye shift and trying to get this thing back together. And so if you want more of the details, check it out on Instagram as well, but I thought I'll pop in here and make a video. Not super detailed, not really a how-to video, but just kind of show you what I'm doing. So I'll move the camera over and show you exactly what I'm working on right now. So if you're a Willys person, you've probably seen and done this many times. So, or a flathead person, or Briggs and Stratton, or whatever. Just putting the keepers in these, got the cam lubed up, put new cam gear in. All the parts are from Kaiser Willys. All new valves. Last week I spent a lot of time reaming the valve seats. These are not hardened seats, and I'm trying to do this whole job without doing any machine work. So just honing the cylinders. I pressed in the new cam bearing myself, and I hand reamed. I have an old, it's like from like Model T Ford era, valve seat reamer. So I did that, and then I lapped the valves. It's late. I have one more to go, and I'm just struggling a little bit. So a little bit of grease holds it in there, while the old spring compressor does the hard work. So I think this is the last one. So when you're assembling these, the tighter coiled section of spring goes north. So that's actually the top. And just push her up as far as you can. If your cam's in the right position, if it goes too far back, it holds the lifters or the tappets up too high. So if you make sure the cam's in the right spot, you can do all 8 valves without turning the engine over. There is enough room. Ooh, it fell down. There's enough room to push all the springs up no matter what position the valves are in. I got slippery fingers. So this is why it's nice to do this when the oil pan's off and the bottom end's not in, because if you drop one of these, it just falls on the ground. There we go. A little bit of grease or assembly lube holds it in place. Boom. So I used assembly lube on the valve stems, and then just make sure everything's got some oil in it before you start spinning stuff, because that dry metal on metal action is never good. So a little bit of oil, and I did put assembly lube on the end of the valve because that's where all the pressure ends up. Now you have two polished surfaces, and but you definitely want some lube in there. All right, valves are in. Roll this back over and show you these pretty new valves. Get the pin in. So pretty. One question I have seen is people asking, because the valves just come in little baggies, and they're not really in a box that's labeled intake and exhaust. And while the intake valves are slightly larger, it's like a tiny bit larger. Like you'd actually have to set them right up to each other or mic them. But a quick way to tell, when you buy new valves from Kaiser Willys, the exhaust valves are a really good alloy stainless valve, and so that makes them non-magnetic. So we have exhaust valves on the end, and we have our two intake valves, two exhaust, so on and so forth. So this should be an intake valve, and it's magnetic. Okay, so you see the magnet grabbing there, nothing there. So exhaust, intake, intake, exhaust, exhaust, intake, intake, exhaust. So that's a quick way. Also, there are little numbers on the bag. They're kind of hard to read, but it says there's an I, so it says I782, I think, and the other one says E781. So intake starts with I, exhaust starts with E. So there's a couple ways. If you just get a bag of these and you're not sure which is which, just get out the magnet. Exhausts are stainless. They are not magnetic. Intakes are a different type of carbon steel, or a higher carbon steel, and they're magnetic. So just a small tip, but if your parts get all mixed up, that could help you. If you're dealing with really old original valves, they didn't have stainless exhaust valves, so they'll all be magnetic, so you will have to measure them. And intake valves on these are bigger. So hope that helps. Just a little assembly tip. All right, I'm not going to go any further into this tonight, but I will show you some of the goodies from Kaiser Willys that I'm just thankful we can get all this stuff still. I mean, this motor is 81 years old, and I pulled it out of a swamp, and thanks to Kaiser Willys, we're going to get this thing running again in no time. So before I go any further, I just want to stop right there and show you this. If you're starting, not even if you're doing an engine job, just any work at all on an old Jeep. I didn't have one of these for years. It's like a reprint of an old service manual, but this thing is gold. It has literally everything: torque specs, dimensions. It shows special tools. So right now I was, setting the valves, and I'll be putting the timing set in soon for gear drive and chain drive. Just a really cool book, and I think it's like 29 bucks or something like that. So it's almost, if you're a nerd like me too, I just love going through and looking at the old illustrations, breakdowns, there's schematics, diagrams. So you really, the internet, yes, it's great, but how cool is it to have this out in the shop and just turn to a page, and get info that's accurate, old time tested. You're not reading off a forum where you got 15 different people telling you, this, no, this. This is legit, and it's not that expensive, and it's just fun to look at. So highly recommended. I'll put links for this and everything else I'm using in the description of this video and the future videos, because I'm not going to document every single step, but I will try to show as much of this process as I can. So it's good stuff. Long story short, get the book. All right, back to the parts. Engine gasket kit. I'm really excited about this. It needed a rod, and this is a chain drive, so it's, you know, 41 to, I don't know, 45 or 6 or whenever they quit making those. And Kaiser Willys has new old stock connecting rods, so I'm gonna open, there'll be a special video just for this. I think this is so cool. Still got the old like wax paper, cosmoline, whatever that stuff is. So there is a 80-some-year-old brand new part inside there. I think that's cool. You can just open up the catalog and order that stuff. But anyway, nerding out on the Jeep parts. So plug wires, internally resisted coil, brand new distributor. I went with points. I'm just a points guy. If I'm running a not diesel engine, I'd rather just have points. Oil pump, cam, timing gear set, new timing chain, fuel pump. I didn't get a starter with this engine, so I got I'm a big fan. I know they don't look cool, but these high torque gear drive starters are the boss. And water pump, spark plugs, thermostat, and spacer. And I'm just really pleased lately with how many USA made parts are in my orders when I open them up. So we got Hastings, Clevite, and Engine Pro, all made in USA, top end parts for this thing. And so yeah, that stuff right there is going to get this thing running again. I have there's an MB head that was on this that I'm going to use, and then I'm going to steal the carburetor. This is the one I rebuilt in that Kaiser Willys video, like way back in the fall or whenever it was. So I'm going to steal that WO off that engine, probably use that radiator, and we're just going to start it right here on the ground probably. So from May 1st to June 1st, resurrecting this really old engine. The next steps will be we'll flip this over and start putting bearings in and get the crank dropped in there. Then rods, pistons, rings, timing set. I mean, these engines are so simple. And then I will cover the oil pump distributor installation, because I know the first couple of times, and even now, I'll probably still mess up. That's a little tricky, and it's important, and there's not really a whole lot of info out there, so we'll cover that and get this thing together, get some water and oil in it, fire it up. It's going to be pretty cool to hear this. Here the block is flipped over, so I got the good old AMSOIL assembly lube. Pretty slick, pun intended. But I flipped it over because I just wanted to show you this. Check that out. December 3rd, 1943. This engine's kind of an anomaly. I talked to some of my Willys knowledgeable friends. I'm not a super historical Jeep guy, so I don't know a lot about them, but this block is stamped CJ2A on top, and as you know, they didn't make them until like late 45, 46. So, you know, this block was cast and machined in 43 and then put in a CJ2A, and I don't really know the history after that, but that's old, so I think it's kind of cool. Let me know what you think. So, it's late. I'm going to bed. Thanks for watching. As always, catch you later.